Alright, welcome to part 2. So before we get started with part 2, I had a video clip that I had filmed before I started the part 1 video of how to frame the deck in what order. I did not put that on the video, unfortunately, because I couldn't find it in my files, so I had to redo it. So what you're watching is how to frame the deck start to finish in order, plus the sizes. If you look closely or pause it, you can see the sizes of the boards that you will need to frame that 4 foot by 4 foot deck, and in the order that I put them together. Alright, so this is a frame and square. Okay, you can purchase one of these at your local hardware store, your local lumber yard, or wherever. Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those kind of stores. Okay, so these are my little tabs. These things actually I will lock into place on the numbers that I want. So this side will represent my rise, which is 7 1/4, and this is my run. This would be my treads, okay? These are gonna be at 10 inches, all right? So when you set these things on here, they actually unscrew and screw in. You wanna set this thing up, you wanna put your frame and square right on here, okay? I wanna set this thing up and tighten it. When my 7 1/4, from this corner, I look over and I find 7 1/4. When I'm right about 7 1/4, I tighten this thing up, and now it holds it there, okay? And then on my run, I come across to 10 inches, and then I put this thing on and I tighten it up, all right? I wanna make sure that I'm looking at the right side, this outside part here. 10 inches is right on the edge of my board, that looks perfect. Okay. Tighten these things down so they don't move, all right? And then take your pencil. This lumber is not the best lumber, this is all scrap. You see these knots and stuff in here? I would not use this for stairs with these big knots and stuff in it, but this is all extra scrap lumber, okay? So make sure this thing's sitting right. Trace your mark, rise and run, slide it over. Make sure this thing lines right up with the edge as best you can. Lumber's rounded on the edges, so as best you can line it up. One, two, three, four, 5. Okay, from there, you want to mark the top of your stairs, you want to trace that back, and you want to notch this ball. All right, so I go right to the beginning, right where I started on my first step, okay? I traced this thing up, I went all the way through to the end of my board, and then on my top one, my top rise that I marked, I just put my square on here, and I traced that thing all the way across, all right? So I'm gonna end up cutting this off. This is gonna actually get cut out, but I'm gonna cut this one clear. All right, so here we are at the bottom now, okay? So my bottom step, this was my bottom run, okay? I'm stepping off the ground, so this would be the ground. I'm stepping up right here onto the tread, okay? I went from that edge, I went over 7 1/4, okay? The one thing that you gotta remember to do is on your first one, you gotta minus the thickness of whatever you're gonna use for a tread, okay? So, or a step. I'm gonna use the same thing I'm using for the deck, which is 1 inch PT decking, okay? So I have to minus an inch. I'm gonna minus 1 inch. That way when I put that first piece on, right? If I went 7 1/4 and then I put that piece on, I would have 8 1/4. You don't wanna do that. So the first thing to do is continue this line with your square all the way over so that you have a end mark, okay? So I lined this thing up, I went all the way over, took my tape, I went 7 1/4, and then from that 7 1/4, I minused 1 inch. So I would have 6 1/4, okay? I wanna do 6 1/4 on the other end of this thing, so I'm square. Take my frame and square, or a straight edge, whatever you got. Line these things up. Okay. Now that's my bottom. I get rid of this bad boy. And now my bottom step, 6 1/4. Add an inch once I put my decking on, 7 1/4. 7 1/4, 7 1/4, all the way up this is gonna happen, okay? Because I'm minusing this right off the bottom of my bottom step. Okay, one other thing that you also do is, this is my kicker. So from here, I'm gonna go the thickness of a 2x4, 3.5 inches. All right, pull up my speed square if you have one. Make sure it's squared up with that line. I'm going to notch out 1.5 inches. All right, speed square actually shows you 1.5 inches, so. Yo! I put this thing on, there's my wife yelling at me. Line this thing up, This gets cut out, and there'll be a 2x4 sitting in here. This is gonna hold all your all your stringers to the ground or whatever you're gonna attach to, concrete, decking, whatever. I'm gonna put a 2x4 and I'll show you how. All right, so there's two ways I could have did this. I could have kept my 5 steps, my 5 risers. That would have brought this right up to the top of my deck, and then I would have had to continue my deck right out over my stairs and then step down, okay? I chose to do it different. So what I'm gonna have to do is pad this down, okay? I wanna bring this frame out to match underneath here to make sure that I can secure these to it, okay? They make a couple different kind of hangers, and there's some new fasteners that you could buy, a couple different ones. I don't happen to have them, so I'm gonna put these things on without the fasteners, without the hangers for the stairs, but fully recommended. And I will actually put some pictures on here to show you what kind you should get or I recommend. Okay. All right, so here I am cutting my stringers out. Okay, so I cut through on the ends, but between every rise and run, I cut to the line and stop. You do not want to cut through. You don't want to cross cut. Okay, I stop at each intersection without going through. Okay, that's gonna weaken your stairs. Okay, so never cut through. Okay, here I am cutting the bottom out for my 2x4. That's gonna hold all my stringers in place, and then I'm just tapping these things out, and here I am showing you the nub. All right, that is a jigsaw. You can use a jigsaw or a handsaw, but I'm cutting out all those nubs. Okay. And I'm not cross-cutting. See? Nice and clean, no cross-cut. Doesn't make them weak. Alright, so then you take this 2x4, I nail it on the end flush with each end stair stringer, and then I split the difference, just like I did with my joists. I split the difference, okay, and did equal measurements apart for my stringers in the middle, okay? I can't tell you the exact number, I just split the difference. And then make sure that you mark that on the bottom 2x4, and then you notice the 2x4 I have underneath, that's just holding those together until I nail it, okay? And then, like I said earlier, I would actually buy hangers and put hangers on the end of these, but since this is a teaching video, I don't have my hangers. Alright, so next thing I'm doing is I'm putting blocking in around my posts. All your posts have to have blocking before you do your decking. Okay, that is going to secure that PT post from wobbling when your friends have a couple drags and they're leaning on your rail and you don't want them to fall over. Okay, you got to block all those in, nail them all in, secure them with screws, and then you can deck. Okay, those wedges I just pointed to, those help you level this thing, and then you just cut them off with your knife. And there I am showing you these wedges again because, you know, just in case. So wedges are there, you're going to cut those things off, and then now everything's level, I can start filling in my deck. Okay, and here's my decking. This is 1-inch PT decking. Okay, and this is a bunch of scrap from work too, so I know that my deck's 4 feet wide. I know my stairs are 4 feet wide. So I went 4 feet wide plus an inch on each side. So instead of 48 inches, I went 50 inches, and I cut all the ones that I could cut for my steps. I cut all of those first, okay, and then I cut a couple for the top, and then what I did was I took a scrap piece of that 1x, I put it against my stair stringer on the outside, and then I lined up my board with it. If you can see it in my hand, that gives me a 1-inch overhang, and it makes it the same. Every step I put that little block there, and then I just line the edge up, then you're not pulling your tape out every 5 seconds, okay? The other thing I did was I cut a little scrap piece. I ripped it to 5/8 of an inch, and I put that in between every piece of decking, okay? And if you notice the gap in between each piece of decking, that's rain can run off, dirt can run off, snow can melt through there, okay? You don't want to put them tight together, you always leave a little gap, alright? And here I am notching out for my posts. I've been using all free material left over from job sites, okay? So you won't see every screw in here. You won't see every nail. You won't see the rest of this decking because I'm not gonna, well, I'll take this thing apart after I'm done. All right, I still have my 3/4 inch gap under here. Okay, so I have about 5/8 in between these things and almost 5/8 underneath. So this will allow snow, rain, ice, and all that stuff to hopefully fall through all the way down. All right, so here in Massachusetts at least, 42 inches off a flat surface for the top of my rail, all right? I'm gonna measure up from my decking, from right on the top of the decking, once it's finished. I'm gonna measure up 42 and then subtract whatever my cap's gonna be. If it's gonna be a piece of decking for the cap, that's an inch, I'll do an inch. If it's gonna be a 2x4 maybe, 2x4 piece of fur, whatever you're using for your deck, you minus an inch and a half. When you're coming down your stairs, you're gonna measure off the nose, which is right before here, this is the nose right here. You're gonna measure off the nose 34 inches, okay? Between 34 and 36. From here to the top of your rail, whatever it's gonna be coming down, like I said, if you're gonna use a piece of decking, which I'm gonna, all right? I have a piece of decking coming down, measuring off the nose, each section, I'll check it too before I make anything permanent, 34 to 36, minimum. All right, so here I am running up. So I'm gonna mark the top at 42, and then I'm gonna mark the bottom between 34 and 36, and I'm also gonna mark the top 34 to 36. I'm gonna make 2 marks, okay? I'm gonna cut the angle after I nail this piece of strapping on, check my marks, make sure they're good, and then scribe it with my pencil, and then transfer that mark around the 2x4, or 4x4 I should say, and then cut it with my saw. Be very careful. And I have to trim a little because I'm a little bit off, and I make it nice and pretty. Okay, and then I put my top piece on, and that's my cap, okay? At the very top, it would be a square cut because the top railing would be flat across, and that would be at 42 inches. All right, there you have it, simple deck stairs. Okay, once again, bottom one's tight, middle rail, 21 inches from the top down to the nose of your stair. Top's got to be between 34 and 36 inches. Okay, top on your flat deck, 42 inches. Okay, I could do ballasts. I just don't have any. I don't feel like cutting them up because I'm almost out of free material. Okay, so simple deck stairs, simple railing, simple decking, simple braid, simple. Done it works.